Welcome to today's episode of the Dive Into Reiki podcast. Today, I'm very excited about our guest, Jasmin Harsono. Jasmin is an international wellness intuitive guide, speaker, and author of the book Self Reiki, published by DK. In addition, she's a Reiki practitioner and sound artist. Jasmin founded Emerald Tiger, and I'm personally obsessed with that name. I found it very beautiful. Emerald Tiger is a conscious well-being and lifestyle brand. In 2021, she also founded Breathe Love, a community platform that showcases people, brands, organizations, and charities that do good in the world. She works with clients worldwide one-to-one and holds groups, corporate sessions, and brand activations. Jasmin, so much gratefulness on my side to have you today, for making the time, because I've seen you're a very, very busy person. So I really
Oh, it's been a busy few weeks, but I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you, and thank you for your patience.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure. So I wanted to start like I start every episode of this podcast, and is that first encounter with Reiki practice, whenever that happened in your life.
Yeah, I well, I spent most of my life feeling a void, feeling lost. A large portion of my life feeling depressed, and my teenage years were very traumatic. But I always had a belief that I'm a spiritual being, I'm in a human body, and that's part of me and part of my life's journey. But in my late 20s, I felt like a stirring within, and my practices began to deepen. I was already meditating, and I had some practices there, particularly with sound and singing and writing music. But I started to seek help and started to find ways to really liberate myself from feeling sad and lonely on a daily basis. And as I started to seek help, I started to also get health issues. So in my early 30s, I got a cancer diagnosis. I got endometriosis, a diagnosis for endometriosis, something that I had lived with for a very long time, and other issues that started to become apparent. And so I had this deeper quest to support my health and well-being. And it was through, I think it was my sister actually that said to me, go and have a Reiki treatment, go and try Reiki. And so I did, and I had a few treatments. And I think from there, it just kind of, it's that snowball effect of, yeah, I just had this interest to do the training. But I didn't do anything. And then I received an email from one of my teachers, who's now my teacher, about his book. And then so yeah, I went down this road of reaching out and did the Reiki 1 training, and then I went on to do my Reiki 2 training and masters, and then I went and did my masters again. But yeah, I think it was just through seeking help. I was looking for ways to support my health and well-being, and that's kind of what brought me to that space of wanting to learn Reiki and to be able to support my own health and well-being. And then this intention from within came. I always loved to support and help others, and I was already a well-being mentor. So the intention to listen and hold space and support others really just began to ring really true in my body. I wanted to help people to feel a sense of coming home to their body, heart, and soul, and so I started to integrate these practices into my work. And through this opening that I found through my Reiki attunements and practicing Reiki, I came back to my voice. And so I just came back full circle back to sound as well. And I felt very grateful that I suddenly was able to, not suddenly, but was able to experience, who I was again. I found myself and found my voice. And I feel very grateful that happened at a time when I really needed it.
I love how simple you put it, right? Coming back to my body, coming back to myself, right? And finding ourselves again through a practice
Mm,
versus gaining power or becoming like these perfect beings. It's just coming back home. I think that is a very beautiful way to express it. And can you explain a
yeah.
little bit about more coming back to the body in a spiritual community? And my experience, and this is a New York thing, spiritual communities are a lot of going out of the body into other dimensions, which is also very valid exploration. But what are the advantages of actually bringing your spiritual practice towards the body? If that's grammatically correct. Sorry.
Yeah. I think through my own sort of spiritual practices and things that I've learned, a lot of teachers at the time that I was experiencing will always go into those outer body experiences, you know, hone into your third eye chakra and all of that stuff, which is really powerful and beautiful. But we lose a sense of being in a human body, right? We are living and having human experiences, and we need to feel our feelings and feel our body, and that's how we navigate life, being grounded in our body. So I think it's really important to have a grounded practice. Um, it's one of the reasons why I really love the three diamond practice, because we ground into earth energy first. We ground into the body and feel into our body and our feelings, and then we open to our hearts and into heaven energy. So I think there is an importance there to ground. And also, from that grounded perspective, we have a sense of compassion and kindness and empathy towards other people as well, and all living things. If we're always outside of our body, we're not seeing things as a reality. And I think, you know, we talked about spiritual bypassing, but I think there is a sense of that's what happens as well when we're always outside of ourselves, or we always like looking for that high. We lose that sense of groundedness, and life is messy. There is stuff inside and outside of us always going on. And that grounded practice just helps us navigate through that, you know, without finding that balance through that messiness.
I think you said a couple of things that really hit me you know, things will never be perfect, right? They will always, and lately it's come very true. If you open the news, right? So having that groundedness helps you navigate. And the other thing I love when you say, like, when you have both heaven and earth, then there is balance, right? Like it's very difficult to maintain the balance if you're just in one extreme, either too grounded or too much into the heavenly energy. So bringing that balance of being able, as you say, having the spirit and the grounded, the body is very important. So I
Yeah.
don't know if I'm familiar with the three diamonds because I come from a more kind of like lineage that goes towards more the traditional Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
But many of the listeners and viewers actually probably have a more Western practice, so they may not be familiar with the three diamonds. Could you tell a little bit what it is and what is so appealing to you? Like, why did you, they're like probably 50 meditation, like this is the meditation I really enjoy.
Yeah. Um, the three primary energy centers in the Japanese energetic system are called the three tandem points, aka the three diamonds. The Chinese call it the three dantians. They are powerful energy centers that, for me, through practice, has helped me come home to my body. And I feel a sense of, you know, really tapping into my true self over and over again, and feeling a sense of unity and balance. So we are connecting to earth, heart, heaven, heat energy. Um, Not so much connecting either, just remembering and opening up to that energy, being aware of it. So the lower tandem, earth energy, it refers to Hara, refers to the Hara access point, which is in the belly. So Hara means belly, and it grounds us into earth energy, into our physical body. It is the central access point of life force energy. So we awaken, we essentially awaken our Reiki there, and it always brings awareness to our creative energy, Mother Earth, our womb, and this feminine energy, this flow in the body. We were just talking about grounding before, and this really helps us ground into our physical body, and a really great practice to keep coming back to. So that's the first energy center, the lower tandem, earth energy. And we know through a lot of Japanese practices that they consider the hara to be the center of the body's energetic powerhouse. Karate, judo, we see sumo wrestlers pose in a grounded stance and very much focused on the hara. So you can see through time that they believe energy is stored in this point of the body and it expands throughout the body from there. The middle tandem point is heart key energy, so it opens us to essentially to our true self. It's that vast emotional wisdom and intelligence. The heart is a brain that we often don't connect to. It is full of wisdom, and the energy of the heart expands around 3-4 meters around us. So when we start to ground into the body and then come into the heart space, we feel a sense of that we can start to open into this space and feel all of what the intelligence that comes from the heart, all of those emotions and feelings and things that we are going through, the pain that we've suffered is in the heart, but also the unconditional love that we always have in our body. We start to open up to that space, and when we start to feel that energy move into our body, that starts to radiate outside of ourselves, and other people start to connect to that energy as well. So it's that heart energy, very beautiful and profound energy. And then we move up into the upper tandem, which is heaven energy, and this is located between the eyebrow point, so the third eye, and this is our heaven energy that connects us to intuition, wisdom, and our inner knowing. So it's like that, our inner GPS, that compass that guides us, but also expands us and connects us to our spirit guides, angels, ancestors, and the universe. It's that final opening of the energy centers that kind of brings us out from our inner world to our outer world, to that bridge. And then when we're exploring them all, we start to feel a sense of these diamonds, this light starting to shine through our body, radiate through our body. And the diamond is used in Buddhism as an analogy. So as we practice, we continue to buffer the diamonds, to keep them bright. It's our brightness and shine. The shine cuts through the layers of worry, self-doubt, things that are going on in our lives to bring us back to our true self. But essentially, I think it's just a really beautiful practice that incorporates that heaven and earth meeting in the heart space, that we are coming home to all that we are, earth, heart, and heaven. That's all that the body encompasses. And I always like to say, when we do this work or love ourselves, we tap deeper within, and over time, we feel that shine more and more, and our inner and outer worlds feel more balanced and whole. And I always say that we are one star that unites all stars. So when we practice and love ourselves, I feel like we start to see people around us start to awaken or feel that shift within themselves as well.
You just put it so beautifully, and it's funny because you said at the beginning, when we have an embodied practice, we can go through challenge centered and, in the right way. And I'm thinking 3 diamonds, the diamonds actually become bright because of pressure, right? So it's really using a spiritual practice to transform whatever ails us or affects us, and we can become these shiny diamonds through it. It's really a beautiful image that came to my mind. And that was,
Yeah, and I think also, sorry to interrupt, but I think also when life is not easy, and we're not always going to feel that in everyday life, but I think the practice helps us have that awareness that we've been there before, that we can come back to that, and it gives us that nudge to come back to our practice, and remember that we are made up of this energy and we have this within us always. I think that's really important, because again, that's part of that spiritual bypass, and that we're always going to be on a high, or we're always going to be in this whole state, feel this whole state, but it's not always possible. So this just helps us come back to that space as much as possible, you know, through practice.
And still have that light. I really like that image, right? Like we're still gonna be, it's not like we're also gonna be always going through the challenge suffering. It's actually being able to shine no matter what in time. So I really like that. I have a crazy question. I don't know if you can answer, but I'm like, if I'm a person watching this, how do I know if I have an embodied practice versus spiritual bypassing? And I spiritual bypass my 20s and 30s, but for you, what would be like one thing to check, like a couple of checkpoints?
I think the you know I think it's about being compassionate and kind to yourself, because when we have this interest into spiritual teachings, we can very often go to a place where everything feels very, you know, love and light. But so I think first and foremost to be kind and compassionate to yourself, because it's a process, it's practice. I've been there myself, and I think most people have. Um, but I think it's when there's a cycle, you know, and when we start to when we're practicing all the time, we start to realize. I think that's the key, is when we keep coming back to our practice, we just incorporate a practice every day and check in with how we're feeling. We start to realize that it's not possible to always be in that state. And so it's not possible for everyone else to always be in that state as well. And so to be compassionate and kind to ourselves and also extend that to people around us, and to realize that life is messy, as I said, and there's stuff going on in people's lives, that we just need to be compassionate and compassionate and kind towards. So I think that really that's a key thing, and essentially, I think it's about just having an open heart. And I always think about the Reiki principles when I think about, um, you know, spiritual bypassing, because that just really helps us to ground back into the physical body and to see life as it is, and to go through those Reiki principles we can see that we are, you know, spiritual beings but living in a human body. But I hope that answers your question a little bit.
It did, and it's funny because I meditate a lot about the precepts and all the layers of meaning they have, and the way you express it. I'm like, that's a beautiful new layer about be compassionate to yourself and others that I haven't grasped before. So I'm really grateful for that, right? Because what I
Yeah, yeah.
is that like you can unravel and there are more and more layers. Everybody can make it your own. So I really appreciate that new layer.
Yeah, because I think what I would never do, and we see it in the spiritual community, but you know, there's this whole thing about spiritual bypassing, and then it feels like people that may have may have been spiritual bypassing, they haven't realized. And so it's only through education and practice that we start to realize that what we have been doing. So it's really important that as a community that we're kind and compassionate towards each other as we're learning. You know, we're forever students, no one knows everything, and I think that's really important, not to judge people, and not to shame people. You know, it's about helping people to find their path, and to navigate life.
And I think you said something very important. We all enter spiritual practice through that, right? Through that high and that happiness. What happens a lot is sometimes we think the practice is failing when we start to have some challenges, and actually we're deepening our practice. And I think that's a message that's important. Like your practice is not failing you, you're actually entering like the transformative part of your practice, right? So I think that is also a beautiful and compassion, and the not judging is a big thing as well. But
Yeah,
that's
absolutely. And I think also when we're meditating every day or practicing every day, sometimes there's nothing happening in our lives. There's no high, there's no low. It's just that's practice. We just keep on going each day, and sometimes we need to anchor into our practice more to help us through those low points. Um, and sometimes we continue. We might feel like we don't need our practice because nothing's happening, but we just feel that balance when we do. You know, we just keep going. So I think there's that as well.
And that is a great, great tip. So I want to move a little bit into sound, right? Because beyond Reiki, lately, sound has been also like, we're really discovering all the beautiful healing capabilities of sound. What I find it fantastic is your story that you actually had sound before Reiki practice, and you were telling me how you actually found that voice again. So if you can tell a little bit of that story, that would be awesome.
Yeah, it was actually my Reiki one attunement. The second day when I was driving home, I just felt a sense of just really wanting to sing, and I sang all the way home, and I hadn't really vocalized or sounded my voice like that for such a long time, and I just remember feeling this drop deep into my body, that I had found myself. Like it wasn't, I knew that I was still working through things and that I still had a fear um, behind singing, being a performer. And that's why I stopped, because I had a fear of singing. I had a fear of being on stage, and so things grounded to a halt in my 20s because of that. But I just felt a sense of really coming back to my body through sound. And from there, I just started to explore sound again. I got back to writing songs and singing, and it was always my therapy and something that I could go to that would just meet me where I was at, and connect me to my heart and my soul, and really help me guide me through things. There was so much um, intuitive wisdom that came from that. But sound has always been around. It's been around since the beginning of time, and we use it in celebration, in expression, and to communicate, and in ceremony. And we are made up of sound. And then when we start to feel our feelings and sound those feelings, it's just such a profound thing. And we have that within us. All of us have that innate energy within us that can take us to different states, and help us move through the imbalance in our life to a state of whole through sound. So, yeah, I love music and sound. It meets me like no other. And yeah, I feel very grateful that, again, I feel like it was just a time where it needed to come back into my life. I needed that space from it, and then it's come back as a part of my practice now that I share with other people. So yeah, the human voice is a sacred, natural, and ancient healing tool, and I really feel very passionate about helping people to communicate through sound in their voice, free in self-expression and creativity, tapping into their intuition, and using various different ways of sounding, like toning, soulful, intuitive song, light language, chanting, overtoning. There's so many different ways that we can express, but essentially just creating sounds that is an expression of our body and soul.
That is a great guidance. So if I were a Reiki practitioner, or in your case, how do you blend those two? For example, I go to one of your sessions, and how will you blend Reiki and sound in one of those events?
Yeah, one of my most popular sessions is the Three Diamonds session, which we go through essentially we go through a meditation that takes us through the three diamonds through breath work, touch, and affirmations. And this is a time for us to really embody the three diamonds. And then at the end, I will take them through a sound journey. So I use various different sound tools, gong, crystal bowls, and my voice, to help people to really deepen into the three diamonds, and also expand into the energy of sound, to really feel that vibration and energy move through the body. And sometimes, if we have time at the end, everyone will come back up into a seated position, and we'll do a little bit of toning of the voice. And I find that people feel a bit more open to sounding once they've been through that journey as well. They feel very deep in their life force energy that feels very open and expanded, and they can feel that shift from the sound moving through their body. And so there's kind of like a pull within to express. and that's where we start to sound the voice as well. I also do voice workshops one-to-one and in groups, and that really helps us to explore the voice, again through sound in the voice, and I take them on a journey to kind of create a way, a flow in life through sound.
And I think you should do sessions in New York City as well.
Uh,
Let's go there.
maybe one day.
Hopefully soon. And I found something, again, depends on the lineages. Some lineages of Reiki are it's hands-on healing. It's either, I place my hands, it's on, hands off, it's off. And some of the lineages with more Japanese influence, like we are a little bit more of hands to say away, because your Reiki practice, from what you're saying, is really holding the space and taking people through this beautiful journey. So I don't know, like for you, if you had to define Reiki practice, how will you define it?
I think for me, I like to embody touch as a sense of to bring focus. And I invite people to place their hands on their body in my practices to feel a sense of warmth and connection, so that the physical aspect of holding themselves. So it's more about just feeling that physical sensation of holding their heart, of holding their belly, but not associating it to if I do this, this means that I've turned on Reiki, or if I don't do this, I've turned it off, or vice versa. I think, but essentially for me, Reiki is true self. So it's always there. It just helps us come back home to our body, realize that we are light, and that we are always part of this energy, that it's always there. But I think it's really important to have that grounded approach. And I think within the Japanese lineage, particularly, there are some great practices that we know that help us to really embody that energy.
Yeah, I think that is the beauty also. Like, as you know, you are probably more sound oriented. I'm very visual. Like, what I love about the Reiki system is if you're very kinesthetic, like that's it, it's the hands, if you have sound, but you don't have to limit your practice to one of the things, and I find that so beautiful. I have a question, because you mentioned that you did your master 2 times, right? And I've done probably my master quite a few times too. What is the importance of training and sometimes finding inspiration from other people or different sources? Do you think, what can that give a practitioner?
Well, mine was my first teacher was Western, Eastern, probably predominantly a bit more Western, and I just felt very I leaned into the Eastern lineage a little bit more. That was like my preference of practice, and so I found a teacher that practiced Eastern lineage, and shared that. But again, the teachers that I've had don't really talk about lineage too much. They allow people to be drawn to the experience, to deepen into the experience, rather than think about the theory and the history and everything too much, because I think we lose ourselves in that space. And then sometimes we might think that we have a better practice than others, or we have better training than others, or we're this and we're that. And we lose our way of just being in our body, and being in our practice. Yeah.
And that's actually, I love that you said that, because I think we fall into that very easy. And the more I interview people from different trainings, what I'm feeling is after few years of practice, everybody comes to the same place by different road, right? They may be practicing a very hands-on healing practice. They may be practicing a more esoteric practice, more sound, more visual. They all come to this place of loving kindness and compassion. And I think that for me has been like so beautiful. Like, it's not so much what you practice, it's how you practice and how consistent you are. And that will be it. And as you said, so I really, really appreciate you said that, because as humans, that's where we all go, right? Like, it's a very human labeling and judging is where we go often. So I really appreciate that. So I also sometimes try to bring a little bit of humanness, right? So you're very human. I know I make mistakes all the time. Sometimes people say like, oh my God, Jasmine, she's so angelic, ethereal, she's perfect. I wish I could be like her. But they don't realize a lot of your knowledge comes from making oops, or as you say, deepening your practice and realizing, oh, that's not where I was supposed to go, right? So would love for you to share perhaps when I call them oops. I heard the term teachable moment the other day that I really, teachable lesson that I heard of definition of mistakes. Something that you went through is like, it was an oops that made you deepen your practice. And it can
I've
be a
been trying to, yeah, I've been trying to think. I mean, there's probably so many things. Um, I think I have ups moments every day. Like, nothing is perfect for me, and um, I always see myself as a student, always practicing. But I think it's um, essentially just learning to be kind to myself when times feel heavy and I might fall out of practice a little bit, to be okay with that and to be gentle in that time, and with that awareness nudge myself back, lean back into my practice. That is often my ups moment, when I fall out of my practice, when I'm feeling very low, and I kind of just go into a bit of a void. And if I take a couple of days off my practice, it starts to spiral, right? So it's that awareness of coming back to my practice that helps me to remember next time to keep on going, because I will get through. That practice helps me get through that lull, that moment. So I think for me, that is the time when I kind of have that oops moment, when I fall out of practice.
I appreciate that comment too, because I think a lot of us can resonate with that. And so, it's nice to know it happens to all of us, and we just need to be compassionate. Again, back to the precepts, right?
Absolutely. And it's usually the precepts that I have. I have them written by my bed, left by my bed, on my phone and different places. It's usually the precepts that will bring me back to that awareness, just having something to read. And then I'm like, okay. Or if it's, I'm in the shower and I start to sound the precepts, or something like that happens. And then I'm like, okay, I'm coming back to my practice. And you just almost start to feel this awakening again, in your body, and that centering back into your body, and then you come back to your practice. But I think it's just essentially really being kind and compassionate to yourself when you have an ups moment, or that helps you have that deeper insight into your practice in the long term.
And knowing that they're normal. So what are your plans for the future? Because you're already pretty active. You hold the space for a lot of people. You're teaching. If you think, okay, I know in theory, most of us live day by day, but is there something that you would like to evolve or explore, or a plan you would like to share with everyone?
I am this summer, well, this year for me, it was really about implementing and having more joy in my life. I turned 40 last year, and there were so many things, experiences, that I want, new things that I wanted to try. And so I'm trying to incorporate and try new things, and yeah, have more joyful moments. And so I'm traveling a little bit more this year, which I'm very grateful about, for work and for holiday. And this summer, I'm predominantly really working on my sound meditation album, which will be a really beautiful soundscape journey into our feelings, and helping us to explore our feelings through sound. It will be a visual album as well, and there'll be some contemporary tracks on there as well. So it will be a contemporary song, but there will also be meditation tracks throughout. So I'm focusing on that, and hopefully I will be able to share a release date soon. But essentially everything that I do is on my website, emeraldandtiger.com, or on Instagram, emeraldandtiger. And also I share news and updates on my newsletter.
Yeah, and you have a lovely Reiki book. And I appreciate, because most illustrations in the Reiki book, like, again, we're putting this on and some illustrations are fine, but yours were very beautiful. And I love they were very diverse. Like every person could feel represented in your Reiki book. And I really appreciated that. It's very beautiful. So it's good.
Thank you. Yeah, that's something I strived for. Again, we can never be perfect. There was things in there that I wanted in
Well,
there
yeah,
that didn't happen.
you always
But
can.
I've received so many messages that say the same thing. And I was just with a client recently. I gave my book to her. She opened it up and saw she could see herself in the book, and we had a little cry. So I know what it means to people, and I'm of Middle Eastern background, but I look the way I look, so there's that contrast there as well. Because within, I really love to see more diverse people, and not just diverse people, but just a space that is open for everyone, a feeling that this space is open for everyone. So I think the book does do that in some way.
Those, and I love the fact that you say sometimes we don't we don't reflect our culture in the outside, right? Like I go through this a lot here in the States, and actually I'm from Belgium, grew up in Venezuela, so I probably don't have a culture, but also let's not assume people just by the way they look. I love that as well, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because I'm mixed heritage, and that's definitely something that has been with me throughout my life. And yeah, it's something that we all should just be open to others. And again, it comes back to that being compassionate and kind. We don't know everything that's going on in someone's life, and so it's just being with an open heart, being there for someone just as they are, meeting them exactly where they are.
Awesome. So I did a drawing, and it's funny, lately the drawings make more sense when I do the interview, even though we had a lovely pre-interview. So when you were talking right now about the three diamonds, right, it really felt about this grounding. Like I felt like this flower blooming, like almost like the earth diamond was this very like strong stuff, and then the heart is the center, and then we allow that heaven diamond to bloom. So when I talked to you, obviously the image of flow and the three diamonds was, but I couldn't just draw the three diamonds. So I drew, I don't know if you can see it well, is a woman, and she's obviously holding her centers, but it's really energies flowing through her. And the idea was really flower. She's actually also a flower and water. So
Mm.
that was the drawing that came. And as usual, silver and gold for non-duality.
That's a really beautiful drawing and hits me exactly. That meets me exactly where I'm at for many reasons, which I won't divulge, but there's lots of things there that, yeah, I feel very emotional looking at it because, yeah, there's a lot there. But I can essentially, that's a really beautiful drawing, which draws me into Mother Earth, um, which feels very beautiful, Pachamama. So that's a beautiful, beautiful drawing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for inspiring it. I literally have no control of what to draw. I just go into the space and I cannot do the drawing until I'm ready. It's a strange. So I really appreciate, because it
No,
brings a
I
lot
love
of
that.
love.
I love all your books as well. I said to you as soon as we connected, I ordered your books, and I've got Reiki as a spiritual practice here, this one, and they're just so gorgeous. I love them, and I love things that are visual as well. I think they help us, don't they, to see, tap into our senses, and to see things as we're feeling. So you're very talented.
Thank you, you too. And I'm really saying you should come to New York. When New York is a little happier, let New York calm down a little bit. Right now, there is not
I
a
know. I visited New York just a couple of months ago. I was there for 4 days, but really a fly visit. So I do want to come back and do some workshops.
summer.
And Yeah, I will definitely do it when the opportunity arises. I'd love to.
New York is happier from spring to October. Then winters are becoming a little bit strange lately, but but I think, yeah, just lots of joy in the summer. And I love what you say also, and I'm gonna close with that. How can we bring more joy into life, right? And joy doesn't mean going party and going crazy, that we can also do actually, but is how can we find joy no matter what happens? And that also for me is very the three diamonds, because it's in that heart, right? So I
Yeah, it's and what is our joy, as we navigate through life, we joy changes for us, right? My joy now in my 40s is not the same as it was before, but in similar ways, you have that same feeling, so it brings back those feelings, but my joy is a little bit different, looks a bit different now. But yeah, thank you so much for having me.
thank you for coming, and an invitation for everyone listening to have a little bit more joy, a little bit more practice, and be more compassionate. Thank you so much, Jasmine.
Thank you.